Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and Iman here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and Mscribe, and today we got DMT updates.
DMT updates, dude.
All right, another one. All right, let's start with Mscribe. So, to my surprise, Iman, I go to Mscribe just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And we've added over 1,000 holders on NAT.
The NAT
overnight.
token.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why this is happening?
I have no clue.
Me neither. So I've been scouring through Twitter to find out any kind of hints, any kind of like major like mega threads or something coming from somebody of notable influence.
Right.
Couldn't find any.
Yeah.
Right. Other than the usual, suspects. But the consensus, which seems to make a little like sense, is because we're seeing like a retracement in the spot price of NAT. It seems like pretty intuitive. You would expect people to kind of like, onboard during these types of events. That's what happens in these markets, right? If there's like a discount on a token, say Bitcoin, for example, like whatever it shot down to 16 grand, what do you think happened? Actually, I don't know. Some people have like that psychological barrier, right? It's like,
it's definitely going to 10K.
Right. Or it's going to zero even.
Yeah.
It's like when it seems like an opportunity of a lifetime if you're able to like remove emotion from your decision making, but in a lot of cases, panic and fear set in, right? So maybe that's not the case for NAT. Maybe the conviction's that strong. It's like, dude, price go down, confidence go up. I don't know. So, maybe that's what's happening. Price is down a tad, right? Last week, I think when we did this update, it was like 58 million market cap.
Correct.
So that's about what? 15% down or something like that?
Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting. People are onboarding, dude. And we're like right there at the heels of ORDI.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah, so let me bring that up again. So let's go back to Unisat, and that way we can see, like, what does it mean to have essentially 14,000 holders? Like,
I mean, it means something, right? Because whenever we were following Bitmap's, like, evolution, post-blockout, like, that was the main metric we were paying attention to, right?
Yeah.
And it still is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, like, shocking whenever you see things like Merlin show up and the holder counts are going down because ownership is being
siphoned
into a singular entity, right? So it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
The thing we've been tracking for the last 8 months that's been going only that direction is going this direction now, right? So it's like, what does holder count actually mean?
Yeah.
That's up for discussion, right?
Yeah, so in the context of things as far as fungibility goes, we have BRC20s, which is the most prominent fungible token standard on Bitcoin, and it also has some of the most holders of any token.
Yeah.
And so we have a list here of SATs, TBCI, and, since we're close to 15,000, we're in this, like, tier.
Right in there, dude.
15,000 tier-ish.
Yeah, maybe by the time this goes out, we'll maybe be above 15,000, most likely.
Yeah.
So that's pretty insane, actually. I wasn't expecting this, like, this rapid influx into this token, right? So I'm not necessarily sure what it means. All I know is, ORDI's market cap is 1.5 billion or something, and we have a very similar holder count. So what does that mean? I don't know. It probably means Binance has like a lot of influence on the actual market
price.
Value, Binance and OKX. So, yeah.
So, so that's it. So holder count going up. We have another update. So if you go to elements on the Mscribe page, you'll see kind of like a new little icon here, the little three buttons.
Yeah, this is like an Mscribe like interface update, I guess. We haven't really made an official announcement of it yet on Twitter, nothing like that, or updated the Gitbook. But here it is.
Yeah, so if you click on this dot, you can deploy an NAT, right, using that element. So the element is DMT, and you decide a ticker. Is this going to be a bitmap specific project where you're doing a block drop? And then you decide on the dimension. So typically default is going to be horizontal. And for the bitsfield, it's always going to be horizontal because there isn't a vertical, diagonal, or anything like that. So once we get kind of this thing going, we'll just like kind of clean up the UI here so that not to show some of this stuff when it's not necessary. And then finally, the data type. So bits comes in natively as a hex, and then you can convert hex into a number.
Okay.
So those are the only two options.
Yeah, specifically for the supported field as of right now. But there are more data types coming in the future. So the interface is ready for that.
Yep.
And that's it, right? Once you've inputted all these options, so you notice there's something missing from a typical token deployment interface. It's hey, well, you know, what's your supply guy?
Yeah.
You know, how about your max mint? So, you know,
Right.
He's like, yeah, you don't need those details because it's kind of the whole point.
Yeah. So that is why this is non-arbitrary, because you're leveraging the patterns existence within Bitcoin's block data.
Correct.
And then what you're doing is you're claiming that set of the existing patterns via owning a block of that particular deploy.
Yeah. So that literally is like the purpose of the element field itself. Like that is what we are referencing in this like token genesis process. It's like we're recognizing there's patterns in Bitcoin's block data, and we're leveraging that in digital manifestation, right? It's like, okay, so that is what's the parameter that is non-arbitrary that determines the existence of this new token we're trying to introduce into the digital economy.
Right.
So that is the new thing. In case you were wondering, like what is the point of all this? It basically boils down to that single window
interface. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? When you think about it.
Yeah. So on a side note, we have an icon to represent DMT.
Yeah.
And a little story behind this is that we had a giant grid of little icons. Like huge.
It was quite the mental strenuous task to like, dude, which of these is like the best representation of like the first discovery of like a pattern's existence on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck. Of course you had your own like aesthetic. It's like, dude, it's like, it's got to be like clean and like white and black, you know? It's got to remind you of like Steve Jobs. You know? I'm like, no, what? I'm like, how about like something more molecular? It's like, so it was like, it's impossible, right, to come to an agreement. And then we're like, you know what? How about we just like randomize it?
RNGesus.
Let's let the universe actually decide.
Right.
And we did that, and it like picked, I think, the best.
Yeah.
The best one out of the whole lot.
Yeah, so we had an entire grid. It was probably like 1,000 or so, roughly.
It's a lot, yeah.
And we used random.org, and we say just pick one of these, right? And we went through like one cycle of this, and then it finally picked one, and it was this one.
Yeah.
And so
as soon as we saw it, we're like, whoa.
Yeah. It's like one that we didn't consider. Like it wasn't an option.
Well, it was just like for whatever reason we overlooked it or it didn't catch our eye or whatever, but some of the things is, you know, we wanted certain properties, like something singular, right? Like, like representative of like the first atom. Like this is like the hydrogen of this digital element landscape, right?
Or the Big Bang.
Or represent Genesis, right?
Right.
And it kind of encompasses all that, and it just natively had orange and black and white, which are like
that's
the
Bitcoin.
brandable color spectrum of Bitcoin itself, right? So
yeah,
it looks like something is coming out of the core of Bitcoin, right? That's
the
nucleus.
Black. Yeah,
that's the black. That's the substance, right? Am I going too far with this interpretation?
No, man. As soon as I saw it, I was like, man, there must be something to this, like this RNG thing.
That was your definitive proof that God exists. So you finally were convinced, right?
I mean, he did a good job here.
Right, yeah. Simulation, dude. Of course it was going to happen that way.
Yeah, you know? So just kind of moving on with the tweet, just kind of trying to figure out if somebody knew anything about this 1,000 user count on board, but doesn't seem to be any clear indication of we can figure out what it is or where it came from.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, that the hand does what the hand does. You know?
Yeah. This is invisible hand working.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. Over the weekend, Bank of NFTs sends us a tweet and tags us. And I see Michael Saylor giving a speech. So I go ahead and play it. So let me play it for you guys.
If you can transfer something of value through cyberspace without a trusted third party, that means you can manifest something of value in cyberspace without a trusted third party. That means you can create and store and transfer energy in the digital realm. The creation of digital property, digital money, digital energy, and digital matter was therefore affected on January 3rd, 2009.
So here's Michael Saylor talking about Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
At this Atlas Society gala.
Mm.
And I watched this video. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He mentions digital matter.
He does.
And then, so I was like, this guy, it has to be AI. It's like somebody just like put this together just to, you know, ruse us, right?
Yeah.
So then I go and search on YouTube. It's like the Atlas Society. And there he is giving a speech. And so I listened to it. It's about 20 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, this is at the end of his speech. And he says this.
Damn.
And then not only that, this was, he did the speech at the end of 2022.
So this is way before.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of formalized this this concept, not only in like the written form, but also in the actual application side of it. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, Bitcoin is like the ultimate manifestation of like digital matter theory, right? But it's like that is what kind of like harnesses all of that that energy, right? And of course, it is applied also natively through the genesis of Bitcoin and distribution of it. It's like the whole like ecosystem architecture, right? But the whole idea of creating new digital manifestation, new digital matter out of that whole system, right? Like that is the new thing, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if he necessarily was referring to that exactly, like he saw that on the horizon.
Well, I'm not sure, but I guess, you know, kind of like thinking back on this, it shouldn't be surprising because if you go look at explanations of Bitcoin, there's a lot of people that reference thermodynamics, physics.
Yeah.
Like all like the stuff that we keep talking about, like it's already been discussed. It's just now with ordinals and this whole DMT, we can actually put it into practice in a token form.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's not that surprising that people speak about Bitcoin in this way because, I mean, Bitcoin represents like the realest money we've ever had, right? And it's a good representation of at least a value proposition, right? So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. I shared it with you guys, and it was just surprising seeing kind of like these words come out of this guy just because I haven't heard him talk in this way.
Very true. Yeah, and Michael Saylor, he's quite the influential lad. You know, he's got a lot of power these days.
And a lot of Bitcoin too.
A lot of Bitcoin.
All right, so here's something else brewing in the DMT ecosystem: NatCats. Right. So what is that? So first, it was a token deployed called NatCats. I think we can find it here on. Let's see.
It should be on the Nats page.
Oh yeah. Let me go to the Nats page.
This is mscribe. In case you guys aren't familiar, this is definitely the the general purpose, or I guess like the very purposed platform around non-arbitrary tokens. This has like all your resource of information. So there it is.
Yeah. So DMT NatCats has been deployed. There's been 1,000 circulating and about 20 holders.
Yeah.
So what is NatCats? So let me look up a number here. 42,336.
That's a Genie data dashboard.
Yeah.
So somebody's already done the process of basically discovering where these patterns lie within the Bitcoin blocks, right?
Yeah. So the pattern referenced here is this one. 3B, so the element name is 3B, the pattern is 3B within the bitsfield.
Okay.
Right, and so the pattern is a hex pattern, and if that pattern exists and exists on this block, generate a picture.
Yeah.
Right, because if you type in 1, it'll say there's no cats on this block.
Okay.
Right.
So not every block has this pattern, in other words. So the ones that do, that is going to be what, you know, you're going to want to inscribe those individual block numbers in the actual mint inscription itself. So people have been doing that, but this is cool. This is the first time we're seeing like a non-arbitrary art collection, you know, generatively supplied natively within the Bitcoin block data.
Yeah, and so the way that you claim this is basically you go and claim this block, but this block happens to represent this art piece. So right now, there's no way to kind of merge the art piece with the actual token until we do this update where we do non-fungibility.
Yeah, we've been talking about that,
on
right?
these assets. Yeah.
Yeah, so it started off as non-fungible, non-arbitrary tokens based on community feedback. It sounds like unique non-arbitrary tokens might be a better like nomenclature.
Yeah, UNAT ready for this, dude.
There you go. UNAT ready. UNAT. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at coming up with these.
UNAT prepared.
There you go. Thank you, dude. UNAT entertained?
Yeah.
Question mark? Something like that. But yeah, so that is I guess like another addition to the framework that needs to be implemented, right? So that we can see like quite the Cambrian explosion of different collections starting to emerge from within the Bitcoin blocks itself. So this is a good first representation of that. I mean, I've went and scooped up a few cats myself. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah, they're great.
How could you not?
Yeah,
they're pretty cool, right? And
yeah. Let me find another one. Just 42. Let's try 42337.
Yeah.
See how different. Yeah.
Hey.
So they're vastly different.
Oh, look at that color, dude.
Yeah.
So there's some out there with ribbons. There's some out there actually smoking cigarettes. So it's nothing you haven't seen before in the realm of art, especially, you know, with NFTs and ordinals and such. But what's make these unique is they're the same thing that makes the fungible non-arbitrary tokens unique is, you know, the non-arbitrary parameters that determine its existence, right?
Yeah, and this is a little bit more complex than I had originally thought because there's some traits that are based on the pattern itself. So, for example, pattern set contains 420. The 4 and 0 trait is a cigarette. So the frequency is 1,221 out of the 7,000 and change that potentially exist.
Wow, that's very cool.
And then function contains 420, catnip for cigarette.
Oh, that looks pretty freaking rare, dude. There's only 36.
Yeah.
Wow, damn, dude, he's out there like spilling the alpha, dude.
Yeah. And then pattern set contains 8. So 8 and 8. Bow right.
Okay.
88, bow left.
Wow. Alien bow tie. Fudge. There's only
0.
one.
Alien bow tie, double alien bow tie. So
that's what's interesting about this, though, right? Because right now that's like the existing observable frequency of these like patterns.
Yeah.
But these percentages or these frequency counts, they change over time because as more blocks get generated, more of these cats will enter into circulation, right?
Yeah.
So some of them might have these super rare, you know,
quintuple 8s.
Yeah.
Yeah, if this ever exists and there's a double alien bow tie, man, that's going to be quite the existence.
Yeah, you would think so, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because since we're using the bits field and this pattern only occurs once, I would need to look that up because the bits field works with difficulty adjustment, and that difficulty adjusts every 2016 blocks. So that means for 2016 blocks, whatever patterns there exist for 2016 times.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how he came up with this value, because theoretically this should exist 2016 times, right? Unless I'm misunderstanding something here.
Maybe.
Yeah. So okay. So there's lots of these, right? So there's a lot of attributes here and traits that kind of make up this cat. So it's interesting. So now we have to kind of merge the unique art piece into the actual deployment of the token.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's coming. So yeah, another one here is like NatCats, 1,200 results so far, and I think there's like 7,000. So here's another one in development. I'm excited to announce the kickoff of the B Real World Asset Project. So if you prefer instant information like I do, you can access the white paper on Gitbook here. As you read through the white paper, I hope you'll feel that the weight of this comprehensive plan, and as an engineer, I adore good designs, but with this detailed plan, I've surprised even myself. So yeah, this kind of breaks down what this is, and if you read the document, this is an in-depth project that leverages at least a piece of DMT here for a governance token for this project.
Yeah, and also a BRC20 as well.
Yeah,
as part of like so they both play like some sort of component in this ecosystem, right? Which is kind of what we wanted to see. We wanted to see non-arbitrary tokens play into ecosystem design of within arbitrary tokens itself, right? There's no exclusivity between the two.
Correct.
They could be married together and, you know, help support something of value, right? So it's good to see there's actually people picking up on this and actually putting it into application. And yeah, excited to see how this pans out and more people, you know, kind of like follow in this footstep.
Yeah, so all the links will be in the description if you want to read up on this project. The links will be there. And then finally, we got Bitnat. So Bitnat has been collecting a series of Genie data dashboards for a lot of these tokens. And at the same time, he's been generating like his own project based off of DMT. And so here's kind of like the overview of the project. It's called Bitnats, and it has like the same sort of claim process of claiming a block. So block height.bitnat. And then all these tokens that are associated with this Bitnat project are going to be block drops. So this is a provenance-focused project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bitnats.
So in order to claim some of these like Bitnat tokens, like the actual fungible tokens, you need to hold one of these Bitnats blocks.
I see.
Yeah.
And these are all like different. So it's kind of like a way of treating like a Bitnat as if like it's like an art, like, I don't know, on-chain monkeys parent inscription, because something has to determine provenance, right? So if you wanted to create a class of non-arbitrary tokens that are relying on the provenance of something related to on-chain monkeys, you would have to tie back to something
to like the parent,
whatever that is, like something very at the origin of that.
The provenance of the project, basically.
Correct. Yeah. In order, so it's like, okay, now we could kind of root into all the other assets under that collection and, derive new non-arbitrary tokens from that. So it's interesting. This is quite the endeavor. So not only is he going to have to tie all these things together through all the different mechanisms at his disposal, he's also going to have to like build a brand presence, right, in order for these assets to have actual market demand. So it's quite the experiment. It's quite the challenge as well.
Yeah, and as you can see here, I think he's inscribed all of these elements as well. So this hash NAT, the different numbers of 0x's here, and then obviously I think he's pointing to the number of zeros in the hash of a block. So obviously this is a much easier difficulty to obtain as far as like mining goes. And then this is where we're currently at as far as difficulty goes for Bitcoin.
Yeah, this is going to require future support, right? Because this is not a currently supported field. So
so this is just an example of a project kind of manifesting without the indexing support for now, but it's on its way. But yeah, so this is kind of pointing to the field 0, which is block hash.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's also the thing brewing, and that's it. That's it for us.
Yeah, definitely join the Discord because I think most of this stuff is being discussed within there.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely do that.
Yeah, all the activities happening on Discord in real-time conversation. So appreciate you guys for watching. Let us know if we missed anything. If you see something happening in the DMT space, let us know. And I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.